Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special June 3rd edition of ADP Chasing. We're back this week after a brief hiatus. We'll be talking through rising prices on Texans wide receivers, camp hype on Jameson Williams and Rashod Bateman, really an all-time what could go wrong moment, and whether the market is correct to be panicking on Kyren Williams. We'll be breaking it down all here. Let's go.
ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
And the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes, all your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But man. Pat, Davis, it's good to be back. How are you guys doing?
Grand.
I'm good.
Yeah. I did have a moment of panic this morning when I saw that Best Ball Mania was 17% full, and I think I've only drafted 18 teams. I'm worried that I might have to start drafting a little bit more in the flagship contest. Not on DraftKings. DraftKings is going to be fine, but there's definitely a chance that these sickos fill Best Ball Mania 2 weeks before the season actually starts.
They're gonna. They're gonna be. I mean, we know Underdog said we could have made it bigger, but we have some other stuff we want to do. Well, that's cool, and they're doing some other stuff, and it's very fun. But if you don't make it bigger, we're just gonna fill it sooner. That's how this goes.
Yeah. And I just can't. I mean, can you imagine the nightmare of drafting 148 Best Ball Mania 5 teams? You're like, no, 150. The 150 would have been it.
The cactus.
Yeah, no. You want to know something else fucked up? They never sent me the cactus from 2 years ago.
I've yet to get a cactus. One because I had a draft canceled the day before it closed, and I was in Vegas and I couldn't do it. And then the next year. The cactus was sent to an old apartment that I used to live in New York.
Yeah, I just don't think
that was my fault. But
they just never sent it to me. What a bummer.
I still have mine. It's still kicking too. Good longevity.
That's actually some swag that my wife would appreciate, as opposed to all these god awful T-shirts that fantasy companies send you, or the DraftKings suitcase. I need these companies to be giving me very minuscule rake back that my wife will at least appreciate.
It was funny. I was in between. I was moving to school, I think, when I got my cactus this past year. So I had it shipped to my parents' address, and my mom's like, "Oh, what is this for? Is this for winning a tournament or something?" I'm like, "Yeah, close.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely for winning. Yeah, pretty much.
You won a contest. You won a award.
So yeah, anyway, since we've been gone, I'm curious, before we get into Risers and Fallers, how have you guys been approaching these new contests with the sprint and the marathon? Two completely different types of tournaments from what we've had with Underdog so far. So I'm curious, are you guys have preference for one over the other? You mess around with either of them? I'm curious how you guys have been approaching those.
Conceptually, I like the sprint a lot. It's just another time element to layer on top, and the price point is not great for if you want to max it, which you probably don't want to you probably do want to max it to approach it in a portfolio sense. Maybe not max it, but you want to have a fair number of entries, and it's I'm going to max all the flagship contests on these sites, and I'm going to, every time they release a single entry thing on Underdog, I'm going to max that too. And then I'm probably going to max one of the puppies at some point. And I got main events, and it's so how much money do I really want to be dedicating to fantasy football in a given year? Probably not that much more than $10,000, So I don't know. I am really kind of undecided.
I think the sprint's more interesting for sure, because Sacrilegious had an article out this morning on Legendary Upside where he noted that the sprint actually really kind of brings in some of these diversification principles that he's been writing about in a big way, because whereas in Best Ball Mania, right, you don't want to have really identical teams because there's a chance they both make week 17 and you basically have one path in that path, you're probably winning first and second. And it's like, that's not really how these prize structures work. Doesn't really make sense to play for that kind of outcome. In the sprint, that kind of like probably not going to happen outcome is what is happening. If those teams advance, they compete against each other for the final 3 weeks.
Yeah, if you nut out in the regular season in the sprint and you just have like 15 of the same team, you're just competing against your own EV.
You've just burned a ton of your own EV. It makes no sense to do it that way. And he's actually using some examples of starts where like he's already like 5 picks in. He's only sharing a couple picks to that point, and he's already breaking ties against teams he's built because of how stacking and correlation is really important. You pretty quickly end up consolidating onto fairly similar rosters, fairly similar cores, where you have different 15, 16, 17, 18th round picks, but like you're kind of probably counting on the same players in the final 3 weeks. And so I think that creates an interesting strategy element that I hadn't really thought through, and is not something you really need to think through so much in the main event. Like in the main event, everyone knows, which is, this structure is very similar to the FFPC main event, but everyone knows that your team is not actually going to be the team that makes the 3 week playoff sprint in that format because of waivers, right? And because of
changes so much. Yeah.
So much. So, and you have the potential to pull the lever, like when Go Bills, when those guys won, they specifically pulled levers where they're like, we're starting Zay Jones this week, and now we're going to bench Zay Jones, which no one who else has Zay Jones will have the balls to do. We're going to do that. Obviously, that's not how best ball works. So you can't kind of manually create leverage, and so you have to, I think through just being careful about kind of scooping your own EV a little bit, which to me makes me more interested in playing it. Actually, I'm like, oh, there's a strategy element that I can.
Yeah.
My brain has never gotten big enough to get to the example in the sprint where you bench the guy who just scored 35.
Me neither, man.
You're like that level of expansion. I like to think of myself as a pretty open-minded galaxy brain style guy, but that is just, I mean, that is amazing. I mean, Crack Rock basically did it, right? He just benched Amari Cooper for the 60 burger and just said, it's fine.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I wasn't thinking about the diversification point, but it makes a lot of sense for the sprint because I've heard you guys talk a lot about Legendary Upside, like the importance of diversification, even for Best Ball Mania. And I certainly agree that it's important, but I've always had the thought in the back of my head, like, even if I draft the identical same team, like there's a chance in Best Ball Mania, right, that like one of those teams just gets knocked out in week 15 because of pod luck and the other one doesn't, right? So like, it certainly matters, but there's a chance that it just doesn't end up mattering. But in the sprint, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, you go. That's actually that is a take counterpoint, which I think is actually an interesting thing to think through with diversification. In order for that to be true, you would really need to have the nuts. Like if you're saying I have the nuts and I want the nuts twice so that maybe the nuts gets through to week 17 in one pod, not the other.
Yeah.
But you're saying you have the nuts implicitly. And that is actually about how confident are you that any one of your teams is the nuts? And if you feel that confident, then yeah, okay, make a couple copies. But it's really about you are extremely confident from a portfolio creation standpoint. Any two of your random teams being identical is not great. And then that gets magnified.
Yeah,
like
I agree with that. I was just saying, like, in comparison to the sprint, like I think you could at least make an argument in Best Ball Mania for making like copies or close to copies, like if you're really confident in your player takes.
Right.
But in the sprint, there's almost no argument for it, in my opinion, because you're guaranteed to have both those teams all the way to week 17 in the sprint if they advance, right? So that's the point I'm saying is I agree with you that diversification, not building very similar teams, is like even more powerful, I think, in the sprint, which is, I believe, the point you're making originally.
I like to think about this for the sprint, which is that you really, I mean, you're just going to have the 3 week nuts. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for that, but a great explanatory variable for that would be there were pods in week 16 last year that straight up did not have Amari Cooper or George Pickens. Not like neither of them. Like not only were there teams without one of them, there were just pods that did not feature an Amari Cooper or George Pickens team. Period. Which is, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
But it's just the law of large numbers, I guess.
Yeah, and it's so much dependent on.
That's not.
I think
the
it's
law
even
of large numbers. That's not that at all. I want to rescind that from the record.
We'll edit that out. Good thing this isn't live or anything. But yeah, the same thing happened with Mike Evans, right? The year that you won Crane, like he had an absolute blow up game, and it didn't matter because 3 people had him or something. Like
because he was a second round pick. He was actually on the team that I built. Went ahead of my second round pick. He went in the early second round in that draft. And he was a very, very poor advance rate player and didn't do anything in the playoffs up to that point. So, yeah, I think there were like three people in there. So you didn't need Mike Evans. I think on some of the other tournaments, people were winning without Mike Evans. But, yeah, you'll need Mike Evans, I think. Right? Maybe or maybe not. What do you need Mike Evans more or less? Because it's a bigger pool of
well, but the score of 1 week, the impact of 1 week is minimized.
Right. So in fact, you would maybe need Mike Evans less, but the Amari Cooper, but the Amari Cooper
you would not have been able to win without Pickens and Cooper, but you could have survived any player who just got 35 once. So you would have been fine for any player that did that once, but you could not have survived what Cooper was 60 and Pickens was 61, and both of them had good weeks in week 15, I think. Cooper didn't even play in week 17. Cooper didn't play in week 17, which is so funny in retrospect, right? I mean, it's just so funny.
Yeah.
Is this the ultimate elite tight end format where you get that spike week because you have like the whole thing with elite tight end is like
I think the marathon. I think any contest that's just cumulative, like the drafters contest, I think that's the ultimate elite tight end. Because you were just there are a lot of weeks where 13 might be good for tight end 1, and 13 points doesn't matter that much. If you like, for example, every Mark Andrews and Noah Fant team, how much does that outscore a Jake Ferguson, Juwan Johnson, Zach Ertz team by? Like, I don't know, probably quite a bit.
Well, but the elite tight end doesn't have great advance rates. So just over the course of a 14-week season, you can kind of make up for some of the elite tight end production with cheap tight ends. But it's that in the playoffs, one elite tight end is probably going to go nuts 1 week. And like we saw last year with Laporta, right? It wasn't an elite tight end. It was a late round tight end who went nuts. Yeah. But so it doesn't always have to be the elites. But generally, we're pretty good at pricing the tight ends. And so the bet is one of these guys in the early rounds is pretty likely to blow up. And we saw a couple years ago, Mark Andrews had insane chalk. This is 3 years ago now. He was insane chalk in the final, then doesn't do anything in the final. You can win without Mark Andrews. But I don't know if you're winning without Mark Andrews in a 3-week sprint that year. He went nuts for 2 weeks. I think he went nuts 1 week and had another good week.
I've got a thought experiment.
You're going to need him.
I've got a thought experiment for you. At what advance rate does a player actually become a guy you wish he wouldn't have taken because they are going to be so ubiquitous in the elimination rounds, right? So like I think Josh Jacobs from 2 years ago is a pretty good example where he was like something like a 55% advance rate or something, and he was just so common that and I actually think he ended up doing shitty in the playoffs, right? So he didn't end up making it. But there definitely is an inflection point of a guy is so owned in the elimination rounds that even though he would have advanced your teams, you definitely would not have wanted to make him a core part of your strategy. I think. I mean, again, I'm just vibing here, so that could be wrong.
I see what I think the thing is, though, it's like so hard. Like, I just don't know how actionable that, even if it is true, right, that there is a certain point at which the really high advance rate player, you don't want to have them. It's like, how do we control for that? One,
I mean, there's no way to do so the way we're playing the game. It's just a thought.
Exactly.
It's literally just,
My other thought, too, is that, like, the guys never really get that highly owned in these type of tournaments compared to, like, a DFS weekly tournament.
Well,
right?
it will in the sprint. So there
No,
will
they
be
will, yeah.
in the sprint.
But what's the highest
Even in the
advance
BBM
rate?
final, it's still pretty high. I mean, you might have like 40% or something.
So
I know,
in the
but
sprint, there will be, I bet, if I had to bet, I'd set the line at 4.5 players above 40%, probably. Something like that.
yeah, I guess I'd have to go look, but I mean, the
But
highest.
you're basically
advance rate-
saying the 40%. Who had the highest advance rate? Because you're saying there's going to be someone with a 40% advance rate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The
So
highest regular
I
season
mean,
advance rates aren't that high, are they?
Puka, Kyren, Jacobs, Kelsey are all guys off the top of my head. I remember. Jefferson was
I think
super
you still
high.
want Puka and Kyren though. Like those late round picks are so valuable.
Definitely. Yeah. It would, the Jacobs example is really the only corollary where it's like this guy who's like kind of got a shitty median projection, even though he keeps crushing every week.
I think this point is more about some of the issues of stacking up week 16 in regular Best Ball Mania, where like if you capture that week 16 where everyone goes off and you have all the people, it's like, and that's how you get in. That's how a lot of people maybe got in. You know, like I mean, we're coming in with a lot of chalk.
We're 16 minutes in, so it's not far enough that no one's listening. But I don't even know who plays anyone in week 16. I do not care at all. That's not what I'm optimizing for. I don't care. Why would I care?
I mean, it's not my priority. My priority is 17.
I agree with that. Let's get into the risers and fallers here before everyone stops listening.
Yeah, this is killing me. This top riser is killing me.
Number one here, Jaylen Waddle. He's up 4 spots. This is over the past 2 weeks. A 15% increase in ADP from 27 to 23. I think honestly, a lot of this is probably driven by both ETR and legendary upside. You, Pat.
I was about to say
higher than ADP on Waddle.
We're all trying to find the guy who did
this. Yeah. So, Pat, do you want to give the case for why you're so much higher than Waddle than the market?
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just my case. A lot of sharp people are on Waddle. I think it's a pretty simple case of like he crushes in basically everything you want a wide receiver to crush in. He's very talented. There's like really no pushback on the idea that he's very talented. He's in an offense that produces efficiently through the air. Is well designed. He has sufficiently good quarterback play. He really pops in a lot of the stuff that we care about. It's just that he is so clearly the number 2 to Tyreek Hill in that offense, but Tyreek Hill isn't, insanely efficient. That it's sort of like, I guess if the ceiling can be raised that high on the number 1, give me the number 2. It's fine, and then we have contingent value here. Like we have legitimate contingent value with this wide receiver.
Insane contingent value.
Yeah. So you're getting like a guy who is producing the efficiency, the per route stuff of honestly like a late first round pick. And then because he's the number 2, you're getting him in the late second round. And then on top of that, you have this, what if he is actually the number 1 by the end of the season? Tyreek Hill in his final seasons on the Chiefs was missing lots of games all the time. So even for a couple games, if you get Waddle as like the Dolphins number 1 in the Tyreek Hill role, I mean, it's a smash.
It's a super smash. I mean, Jaylen Waddle was actually better last season in the advanced stuff. So in yards per route run, targets per route run. Yeah, I knew Sam would have this ready. I mean, the fact is he's just a very good player who basically just kept getting injured at the most inopportune times last season. He just would like roll over on his ankle. I remember a drive. I want to say this was the London game where it was a drive and he got the wind knocked out of him inside the red zone. So we had to go run off to the sideline and it was another Mostert touchdown. Like I think it's basically just completely random. You have the guy, he actually ran more routes per game than Tyreek Hill last year because Tyreek just always goes off to the sideline. So you're talking about the guy who led the most efficient passing offense in the NFL in routes, and he got less expensive. Now, you guys are obviously ETR and Legendary Upside are dedicated to ruining the game because there was a brief moment in time where you could just get Waddle every time in the third round. He was going after Diggs, after DJ Moore, after Malik Neighbors. He was like the wide receiver 22 for like a week. And now, I mean, I think the market is, I actually would take him ahead of Nico and of Mike Evans. But yeah, he's probably like the best pick on the board at that 2-3 turn now.
Yeah, I think he's a great pick at the 2-3 turn. In the comments, someone saying in the game Tyreek missed last season, Waddle was really average. That's just not true. He had 28 PPR points in that game, week 15.
But it
that
Tyreek
Hill missed
average. But
I guess
the thing you're not understanding.
The fact that felt average to you is pretty bullish.
Yeah.
Last 2 seasons that he's only missed one game. Yeah, I was thinking there was more, but yeah, it was only one.
Yeah, but I think like you look at all the advanced stats, and I pulled him up here. He's pretty consistently top 12-ish wide receiver in the things that we care about here. Yards per route run, targets per route run. If you really wanted to, maybe you could nitpick his touchdown upside, but I don't know. I think that's pretty hard to do.
These back-to-back yards per route runs are like Justin Jefferson. Like that's like the level we're talking about. Like CeeDee Lamb, like the very, very best wide receivers in the league put up numbers like this. So I understand that like he's not maybe going to run every single route because of the way that offense is set up. And I don't know, like, maybe it's schemed and that feels a little grosser than if it's like 100% talent related, but it's largely talent related. He's really good. Yeah. It's not, what Odell Beckham's yards per route run is going to be like 1.12. Like, don't worry, this guy's good.
Yeah. And I do think like I think the reason this offense has been so concentrated is obviously Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle are two of the best, 10 wide receivers in the NFL. And B, the peripheral weapons around those two have been really, really bad. I think this year they're maybe marginally improved. Like Jonnu Smith is a better tight end weapon than they've had in the past. Odell I don't think is anything. I don't know. Malik Washington is maybe something. The wide receivers there are still pretty thin.
Better than last year, but like, is he better than Gesicki? Jonnu? He's like the same.
Yeah, maybe barely, right? And then the running backs,
you actually could argue that like in a way kind of helps Waddle, like just that it's not so much on those two guys. Like maybe the per route, maybe the targets per route run goes down a little bit, but the overall efficiency comes up to some degree, or our drives extend or whatever. I mean, and I mean this totally non-ironically. I mean, I am worried about Tua playing outdoors in these cold ass games.
Yeah,
and
I was going to get to that. And like, I've heard Kyren talk about it, and Kyren, look me in the eyes. It's, late December.
Yeah.
Tua's going to Cleveland.
Look us in the eyes and tell us you're not worried.
Tell us that you're not
I'm
worried.
Not worried. I'm not worried.
I mean, just like how many years in a row do we have to see Tua
completely
collapse to end the season?
I need more years
before we chalk it up as a trend.
I need more years. I don't even know if it's cold December 28th is going to be colder than now, but I don't know if it's going to be like.
I know, but
right.
we're thinking probabilistically though, right? Like the odds of it being cold and shitty are much higher in Cleveland.
I've got some real facts and logic for you, Kyren, that you're not gonna want to hear. Tua Tagovailoa, 31 games not in December, 20.56 fantasy points per game, 12 games in December or later in his career, 14.58 fantasy points per game. I mean, obviously, there's more to it than that, and I'm not saying it's a hard.
He was going off a concussion and some of that stuff. Like, give me a break. Like, it's December. December is the only possible factor we could have here.
He's from Hawaii. He just can't. He can't play in the cold.
This is
can't play in the cold.
This is the Jared Goff thing. It's like I don't want I don't want to ever have Jared Goff stuff in the fucking frozen tundra in December. He's got the smallest hands in the world. He's a California boy.
That's honestly
not letting it influence. This is what I'll say.
We just did this, and you wanted pieces from the Cleveland Jets game.
If you bring up the El Nino, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna rage quit the show.
We literally last year. Zach Wilson's Jets playing in Cleveland was one of the teams that you wanted pieces on. Expensive pieces.
Well, Zach Wilson's better in the cold than Tua. The stats will actually
The
show
stats
you
literally
that.
don't lie. Zach Wilson is from Utah. He is used to the cold, bro. Give me. I will just say this. I'm not letting it influence my decision making.
Yeah, what are we supposed
Waddle.
to do? You're not taking Tyreek 3? I guess
What-
you're
No,
what
I'm still taking him, but I want to have this take on the record that Tua's gonna collapse end the season.
Great. A totally unactionable take that you're not doing anything about right now.
I will tell you.
exactly.
I will tell you.
Just
I
have
will
it on
tell
the
you
record. Yeah,
actionable
let the
thing.
record show.
Thanks, Sam.
I'm not really taking Browns. I'm not really taking Browns with Waddle or A-Chain. I'm just kind of taking them, but I'm not making it a point to get Amari or Njoku or whatever on those teams.
Yeah. I mean, it just feels like every year the season starts and we're like, oh, wow, the Dolphins are the best team in football. They're so exciting. And by week 10, they're the worst offense.
So, I mean, that's so true. Like 70 points against the Denver Broncos literally cannot score against the Buffalo Bills with their entire season on the line.
Just remember that playoffs game against the Chiefs. Do you remember how pathetic that was?
It was one of the most pathetic efforts I've ever seen from a football team. It was so bad.
You have to have conviction that you just don't draft Dolphins. That's how you act on this take. If you believe
I'm
in
just
this
not
take,
drafting the
don't draft
Browns.
Dolphins.
I'm just not drafting Browns.
I didn't hear anything about the Browns collapsing down the stretch. They're from
Well,
Cleveland, baby.
I think
they live
I'm
in the
just-
cold. They can't wait till it's cold.
I'm predicting a 17-week collapse from the Deshaun Watson Browns.
Yeah.
Now, how I'll end
Well,
up being wrong about that is Deshaun Watson decides in week 5 he doesn't feel like playing, fakes a shoulder injury, and Jameis Winston just. I mean, we're talking. If
He
Jameis
can't
takes
fake a
over,
shoulder injury again. He can't.
He's already doing it. He's throwing every
He's
other
already
day.
done
He's
it.
already
He's
doing
doing
it.
the Colt McCoy. He's pointing. He's out there
pointing.
pointing at which receivers. It's already very concerning.
It's over. I mean, the Browns, we can talk quickly about the Browns. Like, I know any projection will tell you that Deshaun Watson and the Browns are all great values this year, but
great values.
Great.
I'm just doing a vibes check on Deshaun Watson, and that guy does not want to play football anymore. And I'll take some of him. I'll take some Amari and I'll mix him in, but like, I do not want to make a core part of my strategy this season betting on Deshaun Watson. Like, he just doesn't. He doesn't want to play football anymore. If
I thought he had the dog in him, if I thought
He's got no
dog. If I thought the dog existed and he was like, I'm going revenge tour on everyone. They all said I was done. They all said he does not care, dude. He doesn't care.
It really feels like he doesn't care. Yeah.
The team doesn't feel like they care that much about him. They don't care that much about him. They were happier playing with Flacco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just he's so cheap in the upside. He's
So
easy to stack. The upside is theoretically there. It's just like, but I think you're right. I mean, I don't go into any drafts being like, oh, I gotta get the Browns, and I generally am not drafting a ton of Amari, but I do find myself backed into Judy fairly frequently.
Well, that is a personal problem, and I advise you to seek your physician about that, because there are plenty of good players who are going around.
Sacrilegious has gone on strike. He got this article out and then he's refusing to write anymore until I stop drafting Judy. He cannot.
I mean, you could
survive.
just simply take Dontayvion Wicks, bro. You could just say ball. Like these are
Wicks is usually gone, man. Wicks is moving up.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. It's so funny.
Dontayvion, I would love to take Dontayvion Wicks. He was drafted 18 picks ago.
I took Dontayvion Wicks today. Hand up. I took Dontayvion Wicks today in the 10th round. I was just like, whatever. I need a wide receiver here. I'm not really that into it. I'm just taking Dontayvion Wicks.
In which round?
The 10th round.
Whoa, baby. Okay.
Well, maybe I didn't even. I think maybe I was gonna take him and I got sniped.
Let's move to talking about Wicks here before we get to some of these other guys. He's on this list here, 8th biggest riser, up like a full round. I think if you went back farther, I think he maybe started BBM around 145, 150. So he's up a lot here. I'll share this chart as we discuss this. I think I pulled this together a few weeks ago, but this is the 5 Packers wide receivers that were part of the rotation by the end of the season. Again, the case for Wicks is pretty simple: is yards per route run, targets per route run. Those are very strong numbers as a rookie, especially a 5th or 6th round rookie, whatever he was. The problem obviously is they used a heavy rotation last year. I guess I don't this is what we should talk about. Like, what is the Packers' incentive to get away from this rotation if all of these guys are playing well?
One of them
That's
is
the hardest
really
part,
good.
right?
That's the only thing that's going to get them there is if one of them really separates. I think the thing that is helping Wicks the most is that they're just never going to run Watson 70% of the routes. It's just never going to, they're not going to plan to play their team that way because they don't trust him to be healthy.
I've scoured every corner of the internet for a Dontayvion Wicks bear take, and I've yet to hear one. Am I about to get one? Is this where you're headed, Sam?
Sam,
I'm in on Wicks.
He's like, oh God, please don't come to me, bro. Please, no.
Sam has made bear case against every player.
All right. Here's the bear case. I can do the bear case for Wicks if that's what the people want. Find
no
me
one wants it. There's no
find
me
one stat that Dontayvion Wicks was better than Bo Melton in last year.
Vibes for sure.
That's the bear case. Baby. Bo Melton, 2.7 yards per outrun, 29% targets per outrun. The point of this take is just that. What if these are just Jordan Love stats? All these stats for Wicks are just Jordan Love stats, and they just play on that same 50% route rate because they like the other guys better. It's not impossible. But at his ADP, I'm taking him. I'm drafting him.
If you really wanted to workshop a take, I mean, I'll just help you. I'll just help you out here. You could do the Bo Melton was at the same Rutgers program that hid Isaiah Pacheco from everyone, like literally the worst. I believe they were the worst team in their division. They were consistently like a 2-win team, and that's where Bo Melton had to play. So maybe you could go there. But where was he in 2022? Did he just not play? Because he graduated college in 2021.
He was on the Seahawks, I think. I think he got drafted by the Seahawks and then released after not playing at all.
Yeah, he ran 77 routes. I think we can just sort of pretend for this conversation that he doesn't exist. I think the thing that Wicks has to do is he's got to eat the leftover Watson routes and he's got to jump Dobbs.
Yeah.
Sam, I think in a roundabout way, you're kind of making like a Christian Watson bull case, right? Or a Jaden Reed bull case, or like if one of these guys who's going
definitely
earlier,
is.
Yeah, like if one of the guys who's most likely to be a starter, it just is a starter, then they have Jordan Love potentially being very efficient. Now, maybe you're saying it's just going to be a rotation and all these guys are going to be tricky, but. Which is, I think, very plausible. But
I think there's
all upside in the offense.
Oh, yeah. I want to be clear that I'm not anti-Wicks. I'm not anti-real.
I want to be very clear. Please.
I know ball, guys. I know ball. But yeah, I mean, this is, we say this a lot, but this, like, the Packers are the ultimate better and best ball offense.
Like when it comes to FFPC season, I probably won't be taking much Wicks, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean,
I say that.
Retract that.
I mean, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out when we get there. I guess the real thing is that I already don't care about Romeo Dubs. Like, he might as well not exist to me. I don't know if I've ever drafted him. I think he's like totally whatever. And Jaden Reed kind of has the slappy Debo, like getting there on rushing production and touchdowns type stuff. Like, you could tell me that Reed runs 50% of the routes this upcoming. I would believe that Wicks leads the team in routes I really would believe that.
I actually kind of think Jaden Reed is kind of a bad pick. Again, like all these Packers wide receivers, I want to be in on Jordan Love, so I'm not saying it's a terrible pick, but he was healthy last year in the playoffs. Like, he had already been back for 2 weeks before that. And in the playoffs last year, he had a 60% route rate. Like, I think when all these guys are
questionable coming into the first playoff game, remember?
I know he was banged up a bit down the stretch, but again, looking at this chart, his route rate in games played this season, and this includes one game where he left early, was 63%. Like, he's not a full-time wide receiver. He's targeted heavily when he's on the field, but I don't know. Like, give me like the under on Jordan Reed's route.
He's also like 21 years old. Like, he might just be better. He was banged up, and he might just be better this year.
Yeah, I know, but I guess that means that they're going to bench one of Watson, Dubs, or Wicks, right?
It's Watson. I mean, Watson is giving sort of, this is what you do when a guy enters year 3 and he just can't stay healthy and he can't consistently be there. These are the types of guys that like fantasy managers can't ever give up on, but real life coaches get sick of them, which is guys who just can't be available. And remember, he had like a couple awful drops last year too. Like skull melting bad drops.
I think Watson and Wicks are functionally the same player for the offense. So like, sure. I don't think like Reed is not. There's no 3 wide receiver set that's Wicks, Dobbs, and Watson. How would that look?
Well, Watson was playing a decent bit of slot.
Yeah, why would that not be?
Getting like the handoffs and stuff, like the gimmicky read.
I guess I just wasn't imagining Watson in the slot. Watson to me was more. They're both kind of outside vertical guys.
I think
Reed provides you with like a
slot.
Okay, all right. Maybe I'm not being creative enough.
I mean, can't every NFL wide receiver basically play in the slot if need be? Isn't that kind of the secret?
Yeah, sure. But Jayden Reed provides you, I think, that yards after catch underneath kind of quick twitch.
Sure. Yes.
Middle of the field slot guy, right? That those guys really aren't. That was my point. I guess.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
On some stuff, they can bump one of the outside guys in the slot, no problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a confusing. Like, I think you can come up with tons of different iterations of how this 3 wide receiver set looks. I think in reality, it is just going to be like, unless one of these guys is hurt, I think it's going to be a true 4-man rotation. I think each of these wide receivers offers something that the other can't do. Even Romeo Doubs, I think he gets kind of thrown under the bus. But in the playoffs last year, he was clearly their best wide receiver in those games. He plays on the outside much more than these other guys. So again, his targets for route run, that type of stuff doesn't look as good, but he's also running the hardest routes out there compared to what Reed and Watson are doing. So again, I think it's just a better and best ball team. I would want to spread my exposure to the cheaper guys, which is Watson, Doubs, and Wicks to me.
Are you taking much Doubs?
Yeah, not a ton, but once I take Jordan Love, he's a priority for me. Just for the touchdowns.
I find it hard to take Jordan Love because he's always like kind of next to Kyler.
I don't take a lot of them.
I would just rather take Kyler.
But when I take him, I think it's fun. It's a very fun build, but it's like kind of hard for me to get to him as much as I would like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could be putting too much weight into his playoff performance last year, but that Cowboys game and then the first half of the 49ers game before he completely collapsed down the stretch, Jordan Love looked like one of the best quarterbacks.
Here's the deal: is all the ball knowers like say the Jordan Love stuff is real. Like it's like the, obviously a comparison would be the Foles run to the Super Bowl where everyone kind of realized it wasn't real, but all ball knowers, stat people, everyone is kind of like, yeah, Jordan Love this is legitimate. This is real stuff to build on.
Yeah, and it's like the ceiling projection of a stack because all these wide receivers are fairly cheap. Like I don't know which one of these guys is going to be the best by weeks 15 to 17, but I have a feeling like the ceiling projection of the Love Wicks or Love Watson stack at cost is going to be like really powerful in the playoffs compared to what you have to pay for, say, CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, right? Like it's a huge discount to that. And I think it could offer a similar.
Here would be my counter on the Love stuff. I didn't hear a lot of, early on in the season when like, oh, this is real, right? Remember, he was kind of running really hot. His CPOE was terrible. And then in the middle of the season, he kind of fell back down to earth a little bit. I didn't hear a lot of like, don't worry, this guy's really flashing. He's going to be fine. It's basically like he was amazing and he looked amazing while producing amazing down the stretch and into the playoffs. That all lines up, but there's a body of evidence from earlier in the season that was like not all that impressive. And I think he might just be kind of a streaky, willing to take chances, high upside in any given situation quarterback, which is pretty fun for best ball. But doesn't that kind of remind you a little bit of Trevor Lawrence? And we're taking Trevor Lawrence way after him with a potentially much more concentrated offense. So if you want to go if you want to bet on this type
I
of
do take a lot of Trevor Lawrence.
I'm taking a lot of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, because
if you can't tell, I have a lot of Trevor Lawrence.
Well, and it's so easy to backstop because it's like, oh shit, I don't have a stack set up. Let me take Brian Thomas Jr. or Ingram, and then I'll take Lawrence, and then I can bail myself out.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Kirk, Ingram, and Brian Thomas. I don't take a ton of Gabe Davis. I think he's mostly going to just kind of help keep safeties a little deeper.
Nah, I think you want to be in true Jacquard Tree sim score spirit. You want to be mixing him in with Trevor Lawrence because you don't want to be, I drafted 22% Trevor Lawrence and I got him out of week 17 and Gabe Davis had 3 targets and 3 touchdowns. Like you
that's a good point.
You do not want to live that reality.
I don't. And I saw it when you said it. I saw it. Yeah. So
it's like Gabe
that's
Davis,
a good point.
And we all know it, but his path to killing you is also pretty evident.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you. Like if you compare any team to the Jaguars, it maybe doesn't look as good because I'm also all in on the Jaguars. But yeah, it seems to me like I guess the counter to your counter, Pat, is that you could, if you're being generous, like effectively interpret Jordan Love's season last year like as his rookie year. The first time he got a chance to play with all the starters in the preseason, the first time he was the guy, and he had a bit of a slow start, but honestly, like people are saying he was terrible to start the season. Like I think he had
he was good.
Yeah.
It was just that some of the underlying metrics were really bad.
Sure.
And so it was like, this isn't going to last. And then it didn't last. And then I think kind of obviously in retrospect, we all got, carried away with that confirmation bias of, see, this guy sucks.
Consecutive weeks, they lost to the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Vikings. And people were like, it's Jover. It's Jover it's like LOL Packers, bro. Yeah. Should have kept Rodgers.
We told you this was coming. He was running hot. Everyone knew it. And this is the real love, and he sucks. Which obviously, and it's probably the most wrong of all of these windows that we were in. But I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to throw out everything that happened before the end of last season entirely. And I guess we're not, but I feel like every day we get a little closer to doing that.
Yeah, I think
really,
that's right.
Really wanted to say that's fair there, but I didn't. Let's move on to.
You can tell if that's better or worse.
Let's move on to talking about the Texans. Both Tank Dell and Nico Collins are up, not a ton by raw ADP, but pretty big as a percentage. Tank Dell's moved close to that 3-4 turn, now going at pick 39. Nico's sneaking farther up into the second round, going at pick 21. Davis, what are your Texans takes? Your Tank Dell, your Nico, your Stephon Diggs. How are you treating these guys?
I'm not that into taking these guys. I know they're fine, but I just how can I justify taking quarterback 6 CJ Stroud? I truthfully really can't. I prefer Mahomes. I prefer Richardson. Roster, construction wise, Mahomes and Lamar are just way better to me. I prefer elite tight end to elite quarterback. And this is such you really have to think about this because what happens when you get like with Stroud, there is no backdoor wide receiver to take. What do you do? No Brown and CJ Stroud. Yeah, but it's what am I? I'm winning $1 million with Dalton Schultz? Probably not. I think the market is starting to order these guys correctly because I do think Diggs is just not really that good of a pick, but it's kind of like a heuristic thing where it's so I'm not that in to Stroud. So even if my individual rankings of Nico and Tank are close to the market, which they are, what's the point? Because if I'm wrong about Stroud and I'm right about Nico, then we get to the final and Nico is what is the Nico Tank Stroud correlation going to be for these teams that make the finals? It's going to be super high.
Yeah, but I think even if you're out on Stroud, Stroud's expensive and you can use that to your advantage where maybe Stroud has a great season, Nico has a great season, and then you've got a different quarterback hitting your lineup. There's enough quarterback upside later where you can, like a Jaden Daniels.
Sure.
Hurts is sometimes falling to late fourth. You can get him kind of back.
You're totally right. I guess my question to you both would be, what is your math-based feeling about having these guys naked versus with Stroud, like in the week that matters. Like, what do you prefer? And if you're not that portfolio aligned with Stroud, what does it make sense to do with those guys?
So I think I'm not really targeting Stroud because I think I agree with you, Davis, that he's probably a little overpriced. But at the same time, I'm totally fine with having these guys naked because Stroud's a pocket passer. I think you get a ton of the value when you take Nico and Diggs receiver. Or Nico and Dell. Yeah, you can capture a huge percentage. Stroud. And then take, I don't know, Jaden Daniels later, someone like that, right? I think you can capture a huge percentage of it. I mean, Stroud, like, he's basically, Kirk Cousins, Tua in terms of his rushing production. Like, even though he is a good athlete, he offered almost nothing through the ground last year. So I think it's a totally viable strategy to have one of these guys and not have Stroud. So I'm not too worried about the Stroud part of it. And I will still occasionally take Stroud just for the stack. Like, I kind of think it's like Joe Burrow in past seasons where it's like, he's probably overpriced.
That's exactly what it is to me. Yeah. And I never really took Burrow because you also couldn't backdoor him. There was never a guy to take after.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so if you're taking Nico, right, first of all, you're setting someone else up potentially to have naked Stroud, right? The worst thing you can do in all of this is have naked Stroud.
Stroud, Bateman, likely Schultz, Noah Brown, $1.5 million.
What do you win when you win? Like 25th place in BBM5. That's what you win.
That's
a bunch of Stroud stacks ahead of you.
You show up. You're so excited to go through and check all your advancing teams, and you find your CJ Stroud, Dalton Schultz, Noah Brown team, and you're like, God damn it!
You'd be so pissed. That's the team that got through, and it's like Nico and Diggs are all like big shots. They're going nuts. You're like, oh, if he throws 4 touchdowns to Schultz, I'm live.
It's like I really need this to be a big Jawar Jordan game. Then I'll get there.
Yeah, so that's not what I want. But because that's not appealing, Stroud sometimes falls to the 6th. So, you can get it's easier to get Stroud in the 6th if you have Dell, right? He doesn't tend to come all the way back so often, but he sometimes will. And the more likely thing is that you can get Lamar. This morning with Pete, we got Lamar in the 5th. We went
that's so
I don't even think we had Nico, we had Debo, but then we got Andrews in the 4th and then Lamar in the 5th. But if that's like Nico, Andrews, Debo, that's sick. And that's available.
Yeah. And even with Lamar, like, obviously you want Andrews or Flowers if you have Lamar there, but Lamar unstacked or maybe a light stack with Likely or someone late, just because of how Lamar runs and scores points.
Totally,
you could easily want the Texans pass catchers with Lamar at quarterback. Like that could be the move. So yeah, I like that a lot. And someone in the chat said here, I will chime in on this point, like Stroud falls a lot to the 60s and 70s. That happens with quarterbacks, right? Like if you take a couple of these pass catchers, push Stroud,
happens with
maybe
Purdy
around
all the time. Purdy, you'll just see Purdy 20 spots after ADP, and you're like, why would I even click this? Because what am I hoping for? What's the point?
Yeah. By the way, Chip Sealark points out that Stroud, Schultz, Noah Brown won you to a milli. So maybe
did it really?
Well, Nico was out, and Stephon Diggs was not on the team. So
those Noah Brown games last year back to back, that's when I decided I was all in on the Texans, when CJ Stroud carried Noah Brown to back 150 plus yard performances.
Yeah,
I mean,
Noah Brown did not have a 100-yard game at Ohio State. He hadn't had one since high school.
No way. Are you kidding?
I'm
Please
don't fact this.
I really don't think I made that up. I really don't.
I need to know if that's real, because if it's real, it's the best stat ever.
Noah Brown, I didn't make it up. Yeah, 0 100-yard games.
Oh my
God. Had not had a 100-yard game since high school.
Didn't have one on the Cowboys either, probably.
I mean, again,
maybe one.
Why are you trying to make me fact check this? But for the Cowboys. I mean, maybe he had one.
Yeah, maybe one, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Nope. Officially 100% confirmed. Had not had.
Oh my God.
100 yards since high school.
Dude, you guys aren't taking Stroud? This dude hadn't had a 100-yard game since high school until CJ Stroud stepped on the field.
Well, I remember looking that up at some point last year and being like, Noah Brown was on the Cowboys. Noah Brown has been on the Cowboys since 2017, and this dude's just going nuts.
Do you know? Do you guys know another wide receiver that hasn't had a 100-yard game since they played with CJ Stroud?
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Jackson Smith and Jigba hasn't had a 100-yard game since he played with CJ Stroud.
People are saying. I thought you had reverse course though. I thought you were now a JSN. It was all the wrist injury bull.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out if that's a bit or not. Don't want to talk about it on the show, but
I'm glad to know you don't even know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure on that one. I'm torn on JSN. I mean, yeah, let's not talk about it now.
Let's just say, hang on. Credit to Davis here. For who else just out of the blues goes, he hadn't had a 100-yard game since high school. Is that right? I don't know. Let's check. And it is.
It is.
That's amazing.
It's true.
We all wouldn't have said it. We all wouldn't have said it. And then we would have been robbed of that
correct.
beautiful knowledge.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I think both of these guys are really good picks because I couldn't be more out on Stephon Diggs is going to hate his life by like week 5. He's going to be like, they're not throwing me the ball enough. You know, it's just like, can't you just see in your crystal ball how this goes so poorly?
So I think the big debate with Diggs is in your doesn't want to play football by week 5 leagues. Do you take Watson or Diggs first?
Watson still. Also, maybe take me in that league if Derrick Henry does it again. If by week 5 Derrick Henry has 6 touchdowns, probably take me in that league because I'm not going to want to be around.
You're a sleeper. You're a sleeper.
Yeah. The Diggs thing, I'm mixing him in. I think I'll be underweight him, or at least that's my target. I don't know. I can see this is how it goes right for Diggs, right? Tank Dell and Nico Collins last year are like exclusively outside players. So they line up Nico and Tank on the outside. They have Stephon Diggs in the slot and 3 wide receiver sets. And Tank and Nico just draw so much coverage that Stephon Diggs is just like a PPR, like a Keenan Allen-esque PPR scam. That I think that's how Stephon Diggs breaks out. I think he's lost, like you look at the charting stuff for him, he's lost a bit of the deep speed, the big play ability. I do think he's still like a sophisticated wide receiver that can get open against zone and just, you know, if the offense lines up this way, the defenses take away the deep ball, it could be Stephon Diggs PPR scam season. And then I think in 2 wide receiver sets, because of Tank Dell's blocking, they're probably going to have Diggs on the field for 2 wide receiver sets too. So that I think that's how it works out for Diggs. It's just touchdowns. He's in there near the red zone and he's a PPR scam because he gets the easiest coverage in the slot. So that's why I don't want to full fade him. Like, I don't know, just full fading a Texans wide receiver. I don't have the balls to do it, I guess.
No, I don't either.
It's fine.
I'm taking him in the third. Yeah.
What's he really gonna do? Like you want to lose? Like a PPR scam can't even really kill you on Underdog.
Guys, we just talked about how CJ Stroud facilitated Noah Brown.
Yeah, but Noah Brown was running routes. Noah Brown was running routes down the field.
Diggs will run routes down the field.
Diggs can still break a play or two.
He will run routes down the field. I don't like Diggs.
You know what? A man just has to believe in something, and I believe that I like Nico and Tank more, and I like DJ more than Diggs. So that and
well, you're gonna get.
And I like A-Chain and Kyren more too. So
yeah, that's fair enough. You know.
Yeah, that seems fair. Let's move on to talking about Jameson Williams and Rashod Bateman. For some reason,
the heart of the show.
Yeah, this is
hang on, we can't have David skip on this. We need to make sure we get the full.
Yeah, you guys gotta. I gotta leave. I gotta leave in like 4 minutes. But let me just say this: I took Rashod Bateman in the 4th round or in the 14th round of a draft today because I had Lamar, and it's just it's truly the most like what am I even doing here exercise. Like how this doesn't even help me. Like what am I really hoping for from Rashod? I should have just skipped him. I should have just let it be. And the Jameson Williams pick. I mean, I got this great stat that I pulled today. First round NFL draft pick wide receivers, first 20 games, less than 500 receiving yards. Santana Moss, who did rip off a great, he had multiple top 10 wide receiver seasons and then 2 additional top 24 seasons. Jameson Williams, John Ross, 0 top 24 seasons. Quentin Johnston, obviously he's not gotten to 20 games yet, but I think
he might
count him out. Just count him out.
I think he's not going to get there. Charles Rogers, 0 top 24 seasons. Craig Davis, 0 top 24 seasons. Kevin White, remember Kevin White, 0 top 24 wide receiver seasons. And Troy Edwards, 0 top 24 wide receiver seasons. It's not a list you want to be on.
I mean, 2 of those names were straight up made up. Craig Davis and never even heard of those guys.
I ran the filter back to 2000. I had never encountered Craig Davis in a Pro Football Reference filter.
If you go back, because I've done some stuff where you go back and look at some of these early 2000s receivers, I don't remember. There are these guys who and Craig Davis might be one of them. They'll be came out of LSU, first round pick, disappeared immediately. And then never, it's
never played.
He had 300 yards as a rookie and then 350 yards as a sophomore. And then he was off the team. And you're like, what happened? Why? Yeah. What is the story?
Insane.
This doesn't have but I don't know. Maybe people know. And I'm not saying that was Craig Davis specifically, but there's all these guys.
Yeah.
Who you're like, what? Who was this dude? He was a first round pick.
That's going to be Sky Moore in 10 years.
That'll be Sky Moore. Yeah.
Sky Moore's going to get
our kids will be talking. Who was the Sky Moore guy?
Never heard of him. Maybe we'll save the meat of this debate. Davis, are you going to leave now?
I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave and I'm going to be back in 13 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll hit on some fallers here before we get to Bateman and JMO. Starting with Kyren Williams, he's by far the biggest mover in terms of percentage of ADP since we last talked. He's down nearly 25%, 5 spots to now the early 3rd round at pick 26. This is obviously due to a foot injury, which is keeping him out of OTAs. He's going to be ready for training camp, according to the coaches, which I believe is true. I think that reporting is probably accurate. Start with you, Pat. How have you been ranking Kyren? Did you guys update him in the rankings once the news about his foot broke, or how have you been treating this?
We didn't really update him. Thought he should kind of been here or even a little lower than this the whole time. And so I don't know. I'm actually willing to take him in the late 3rd. This doesn't seem particularly concerning. Sometimes the market feels like it needs additional negative information that reminds them of the information they should have already cared about and weren't. And this feels like that to me. This foot is probably a non-issue, but I think people are waking up to oh, right. This not particularly explosive back who gets used on passing downs, but doesn't get thrown to a lot and is really pretty dependent on locking down the touches to be worth a, 2nd round pick. Might not get all the touches because they drafted Blake Corum and they keep talking about how they like Blake Corum. And this foot injury is a reminder that running backs are fragile and especially role-based running backs are pretty fragile bets. So that's how it feels to me. I don't think the foot injury, if you thought he was kind of a late 3rd round type of value this whole time, I don't think the injury should push you to now thinking he's a 4th round value necessarily, but I'm happy. I'm kind of happy to see the market price this in a little bit more because I'm getting him some now in the back end of the 3rd.
Yeah, I don't think I've drafted him yet. I don't think I've had a chance to take him in the 30s at all in rooms I've been in, but that to me seems about the right price for him. I don't know, 3-4 turn, something along those lines. Yeah, I think you made the case pretty well. I think he's a really good running back. I think we do have to give him credit for how efficient he was last year. You look at the rush yards over expected stuff. He's really good in that. He's clearly a competent receiver and pass blocker. They trust him on a lot of those downs. But at the end of the day, he, like you said, he's just not that explosive. Smaller sample. We've only seen 1 season of him, but out of 50 running backs with at least 100 carries last year, he was ranked 30th in breakaway percentage, around guys like Josh Kelly, Zach Charbonnet, Justice Hill. And you look at his athletic testing and that lines up with that, right? Like he's not a guy we should expect to have the Devin Achane 60-yard touchdown run. Obviously, it's not impossible for him to do that, but I would think that's going to be much less likely for him over the course of his career. So,
and he wasn't athletic, right? So you get to who is this guy? He was very, very poor in RAS and stuff. Like he's not an explosive breakaway player. Like we know that about him. That's okay because he's he was doing sort of the Josh Jacobs, like gets every touch, and frankly was playing better than probably Jacobs ever has, or at least as well as he had, in his breakout.
Yeah, maybe in 2022. Yeah.
So he's like peak Jacobs, which is, peak Jacobs in a stable situation is, I think, worth probably a second round pick, but the situation got less stable. So now what is peak Jacobs worth? Is he worth a third round pick? Do we know we're getting peak Jacobs? Not 100%, but I'm willing to chance it in the late third.
Yeah, I think that is about the right price. And the other thing for me is like he now enters this range, right, where you look at running back 8 to running back 13. So Kyren, Derrick Henry, Etienne, Jacobs, Pacheco, and James Cook. And what all these running backs have in common is they're on offenses that are projected to be probably top 10 in the NFL in scoring. Maybe Jacksonville's more like top 12, not top 10, but right. Ravens, Packers, Chiefs, Bills. Like I can make bets on these guys just purely based on touchdowns, right? Like these are really high scoring teams. These are guys that are projected to get a lot of goal line work. And I do think the Rams are on the more fragile end of the spectrum. Like if I was going to say one of these teams is going to collapse this year, it's much more likely to be the Rams than the Chiefs, Packers, Bills, in my opinion, just because age of the quarterback, how dependent the Rams are on a few players, whereas the rest of those teams, I think, are more robust, stable environments. So that's where I'm kind of just I'm passing on Kyren and taking my running back stabs more with these later guys in the low end RB1 range.
Are you passing on Kyren, like kind of where he can fall to in these drafts? Because I'm taking, like, let's say I have DJ Moore versus Kyren, I'm taking DJ Moore. But you get to the later range of the third, like, are you taking him over Devontae Smith?
So I haven't been presented with that choice. I probably would still take Smith there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I assume like Metcalf, Kupp, Flowers.
The line would probably be Pittman for me. I think I would take Metcalf over him. And then if he was there for me at 32, I would take so the reason I'm hedging on this question is because I don't know if he continues to fall, then I don't feel like I need to grab him there. But if he stays at like 24, 25, then definitely I want to like take him when he falls 5 or 6 picks past ADP. But yeah, I guess that's a question for you. Do you think this fall is kind of stabilized, or is there more of a slide coming? Like if we get some more Blake Corum hype later in the offseason, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I doubt he settles here. I think he'll either fall like a little more because we do get some additional Blake Corum stuff, or the foot injury lingers. Sean McVay's not super trustworthy, I feel like, on the running back stuff, on the injury stuff.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I don't know. So it could be worse than we realize. So I'm not like saying like if you get any discount on Kyren, you gotta hammer it or anything like that. But he falls to me in like the late third. I'm like, okay, let me mix him in because I was really sitting him out. I took a lot in the big board, and basically since I drafted Corum, I've been pretty out. So I like, for me, mixing him in at a good price, at a price that could be the cheapest we get all year, or roughly. If he comes back, he's healthy, training camp, everything looks good. They're talking him up. He's like, no, like they like Corum a lot, but he's the backup. I mean, he's going to be a second round pick again. So I like getting some exposure. I'm making a bet that maybe this is the cheapest price when I grab him in the late third. I don't know if that bet's going to hit, but it seems like a reasonable enough bet. And then I like him at a third round price tag. I think that's probably reflective of kind of the range of outcomes.
I think that's smart. You sold me on taking him there at like, 31, 32. I think it would have to be some terrible news. Like the ankle injury is way worse than we expect. I think even if we get the reports like, oh, it's going to be more of a committee, the thing is, when guys have these league-winning seasons, people don't easily forget that. Like, people are going to remember how good Kyren Williams was last year. And then also, like, the correlation bros who take Puka at pick 9, like, they're not letting Kyren, fall past, like, 36 or whatever, when they have
Yeah,
the
they're
chance to
getting him
get
in the
again.
4th. He's not coming back past Puka in the 4th, or Cup and Puka in the 4th. Like, he won't.
Yeah.
He won't.
Yeah. So I think that's a smart way to play it. I think there's a chance that's the cheapest price you get. And yeah, I wouldn't totally rule it out that once the more casual drafters come in, if all the news is positive and they say Corum is the backup, he could be back to pick 15, 16. Like, I wouldn't totally rule that out in August. So it makes sense to get some of him now. Jacobs, we've talked about him a bunch. He's down again. Just the committee stuff. Continue to get quotes from Matt LaFleur and the Packers about how they like Marshawn Lloyd. They're committed to using a committee, all of that. I'm curious if you are okay with Jacobs now at pick 44, or do you still think there's too much sort of dead zone risk with him at this price?
I'm okay with it. I don't love it. I think we run into, at this part of the draft, I kind of run into a bunch of, like, I don't order the next group of players very similarly to the rest of the market. Like, I would have like, if you said, like, who's the next player that you think should be going ahead of Jacobs, I'd be like, probably Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
But Kirk goes, like 5 picks after Jacobs. So, and you can who can you get to come around the turn more easily? Kirk. So, not that I haven't gotten Jacobs in the 5th, because I have, but it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm willing to scoop Jacobs in like the late 4th or the early 5th, and then, or let's say in the late 4th, and then I'll probably get someone I like in the 5th. Is kind of how I'm playing it. I moved him behind ETN, as has the market. If the market said, okay, who's the next back? He's going to be behind Pacheco. Okay. I'm fine with it. I don't think I would, if they said he was behind Cook, I think I'd be okay with it, to be honest. If they said we're taking him behind Mixon, okay, fine. What's the difference? So I guess, like, I don't want to just like be out on Jacobs and make like a big, because I don't think like the difference of these prices isn't so critical. And it's like, if you're willing to take a running back here, you might as well be open-minded to take Jacobs here sometimes. We don't know which of these, even if all these profiles are similar, we don't know which ones are actually going to be good, right? Some of these profiles in retrospect are going to look like disasters, and some are going to be the hits. So I think mixing up your bets among this running back group is probably a good thing, but I don't think he really stands out from, like, I truly, like, why should we take him over Joe Mixon? I don't know.
I guess he's a little bit younger. He got more commitment from the team by a little bit. I'd actually have to fact check that, because the commitment that they gave.
In a weird way, Mixon got more commitment because he didn't even need a new contract. He was under contract, and they were like, hang on, rip that contract up, Joe. We got another one.
Here's the thing, though, I guess, is that, like, in my mind, Joe Mixon was in like the perfect fantasy environment for 4 years on the Bengals. Like, he was playing with Joe Burrow on the Bengals, a team that loves to target the running backs, a really good offensive environment overall. And he was still just not that good. At least with Josh Jacobs, I can see the argument that this guy's played with Josh McDaniels and Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback and Derek Carr. Like, these Raiders teams have been really bad. And that 2022 season for Jacobs is still way better than anything Joe Mixon has done from a season-long standpoint. So I see more ceiling for Jacobs. Like, if he's just the same player he was 2 years ago, but on the Packers instead of the Josh McDaniels Raiders, I could actually see that being a huge smash. And yeah, again, like, I'm just making a bit of I'm making a bit of a bull case, because I think the general consensus on him is lower. He's a guy I'd want to be sort of at market with. I don't want to take a huge stand on him, but
that was a non-derogatory. That's fair, by the way. I think that's actually fair. And look, am I saying why? Like, Josh Jacobs shouldn't be taken because he's worse than Mixon. No, my point is like, I just don't. It's hard for me to get like super excited about Josh Jacobs as this falling value that we must scoop and we must prioritize. When I'm like, I could get Joe Mixon later, I can get Aaron Jones later, I can get these guys who I feel pretty good about. I mean, you could go on and on and on, and I just don't. I don't have that much interest in what what Jacobs is providing relative to what those other guys provide cheaper is really what it comes down to. Especially because like Matt LaFleur is like holding like lectures on like the committee running back approach. He's like, they're like, what do you think? What are you going to do at receiver? He's like, hang on. At running back, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the guys. It's good for their careers, frankly. They last longer. I think they're fresher. This is a team, we got playoff aspirations. We want to keep our guys fresh, okay? That's why we're going to rotate our running backs.
Is he just is he subtweeting the GM for signing Josh Jacobs? It almost sounds like every chance he gets, he just wants to blast the GM for committing to Josh Jacobs.
Is he doing that, or is he mad they took Lloyd? Because he didn't.
No, I think they're happy they took Lloyd.
He didn't seem that psyched. I remember, I can't remember if it was you or Barrett who was tweeting out the coach blurb stuff from after.
I didn't do any this year. I did it last year.
Okay, so it was definitely Scott then, where he seemed weirded out that they had took Lloyd, but I mean, I missed the Kyren chat. I just want to say this is it was a bad price before. It's a great price now. I want that on the record. Yeah,
we're taking them. We're mixing them in.
The legendary downside has been outsourced a little bit. And Isaiah Pacheco is a better pick than all of them, though.
I like the Pacheco pick. The last thing I'll say on Jacobs is I fully believe all the coach speak that the Packers want to make this a committee. The problem is, like, sometimes these third-round running backs just completely suck and are irrelevant instantly. Like, we saw it with Tank Bigsby last year. I think we always have this, like, collective amnesia about the third-round running backs. Like, you look at the list of the third-round running backs over the past 10 years, and there's obviously some good players in there. Alvin Kamara, like, there's some big hits. There's also a lot of remember that guys. So again, like, the coach can want to make it a committee. If Lloyd is doing the Bigsby thing, or is just, he obviously doesn't have to be that bad. Like, that's an extreme, but a team can want a committee. And then if Jacobs is just like competent, not missing his pass blocks, like way more successful in short yardage, they're going to shift more work to him. So it's just not this like stagnant thing where, like, if they want a committee, it's going to happen. Like, things will evolve over the season. So yeah, just wanted to make that point.
Can we look at just the 49ers third round running backs over the years?
Yeah.
This to your point, I mean, third round running backs have been pretty dangerous.
What's everyone's favorite third round running back for the 49ers? Me personally, Sermon is the funniest.
Sermon's the GOAT. I think Sermon's the GOAT.
Well, is Sermon funnier than Joe Williams, though?
Oh, TDP was like instantly, like, at least Trey Sermon bounced around and like got some playing time with the, like, when's the last time you've heard Tyrion Davis' Price's name?
Today.
He's on the Eagles.
And then before that, it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
No, I think, okay, so Tyrion Davis-Price, Trey Sermon, Joe Williams is a 4th round pick. This is a 6th round pick, so I'm cheating. Kevin Taylor. Mike Davis was a 4th round pick of theirs. The actual Mike Davis who we liked.
The actual Mike Davis was a 49er?
Yeah.
I don't even remember that. I really don't even remember that.
They took Marcus Lattimore in the 4th round after his
I do remember
devastating knee injury.
And everyone said that particular draft was like the 49ers. They had the greatest draft of all time because they took Lattimore and Tank Carradine, 2 guys who had basically suffered career-ending injuries in college in the same draft.
Yeah. They also drafted Carlos Hyde in the 2nd round, Marcus Lattimore, and then LaMichael James in the 2nd round.
Oh, wow.
And then there was a reason I knew I did this. I couldn't remember Kendall Hunter.
My God. Wow. Kendall Hunter. Baylor prospect?
I think. No, Oklahoma State.
No, that was Kendall Wright. Oklahoma
State. This is the Marshawn Lloyd to me. Kendall Hunter. Yeah. Just like a kind of interesting dude. Oh, it could be fun. And then it's like, nope, never. He was 5'7", 199, so he was a little smaller. But
Who's the Ray Davis? Is Ray Davis is there Ray Davis risk? Are we feeling the same way?
We talked about Trey Sermon, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, not great.
Let's get back to the JMO Bateman debate, unless people have more third round running backs they want to talk about.
Kendall Hunter was the last one I wanted to cover.
Yeah. So Davis, you started this. Here's the rant that I wanted to make. So I was looking at Jameson Williams. I was looking at Rashod Bateman, kind of digging into their advanced stats, and you can just so easily make a case that Rashod Bateman is better than Jameson Williams, or at least like the same player. This is career yards per route run for both of these guys. Bateman is better in yards per route run, better in targets per route run, better in ESPN open score, better in PFF grade. I can much more easily see him being the third weapon in the passing attack for this year compared to Jameson Williams. They got Amon-Ra, Laporta, and Gibbs there. JMO is not passing those guys, in my opinion. Like, and then so again, like these aren't very impressive numbers, and Bateman is barely better than Jameson Williams, but I'm just like, how many excuses are we making for Jameson Williams that he's a pick in the 80s? Like, I get he was injured coming to the league. I get he was suspended for a long period of time, but like, what if just tearing your ACL and getting suspended for 8 games is like bad?
It is. I mean, that was the whole case we were making last year.
What if?
And
What if it's bad?
I think it's just bad.
How about this? Career 100-yard games. Rashod Bateman, age 22, he had already accomplished 2. Age 23 for Jameson Williams, accomplished none. Zilch. 0. Bateman has at least on a professional football field demonstrated the ability to have a multi-reception, 100-yard, explosive performance. I mean, how about this? Jameson Williams has been in the National Football League for 2 years and has 2 total games with more than 2 receptions. I mean, we are talking about a sub-Sky Moore level of performance. I don't get it. Sky Moore has been Jameson Williams and Sky Moore are the Spider-Man pointing meme. Not even Bateman and Jameson. Bateman's stuff has all been injuries.
Yeah, it's been injuries, and they also kind of had the like, okay, we're kind of sick of it stuff where they bring in OBJ and like they're like, we need reliable production out of this receiver. We basically don't think he's a star anymore, so let's just make sure we have that. And now what I'm feeling with Bateman is like, okay, he can provide us that. We're basically signing him to be the guy we replaced him with. Yeah, like we're bringing him in almost like we brought in OBJ last year to have someone reliable.
I need the chat to be serious for 1 second. Just like Jameson Williams is just not that good, and if he gets there this year, it's like total luck.
Well, like the Jameson Williams stuff. I mean, Sam's point about it maybe just being bad is dead on, and like, okay, the suspension. Remember, the suspension was him betting on stuff from the Lions facility. It was non-football. But like when they talk about these guys coming in at like 5 a.m. and like leaving at like 8 p.m, it's not because they're grinding baseball parlays. They're supposed to be like watching.
Well, some of them are. Some of them are.
Some of them are. But like, you're at the team facility. What do you got? Like, you got the apps open and you're hammering in bets. I don't know.
Yeah, Jameson is drafting. He's drafting eliminator teams while they're going over film in the film room.
Yeah.
So man. Like people just see speed. They see 40 times and they say like upside. But man, like the amount of times Jameson has had more than like 5 targets in his NFL career has got to be like once, maybe twice, like
3 times.
Yeah, it's just
and one of them was a 6 target, 0 reception game.
He's skewing the stats, man. He's cooking them. He knew this was coming up.
I think the evidence is that Jameson Williams is like not a very good NFL player, and if he does get there this year, it will be on a low volume, incredibly high efficiency, long touchdown thing where it's like he scores like 5 50+ yard touchdowns, which he has demonstrated the ability to do at every level.
Yeah.
This is why I think you can draft him sometimes. If I find myself desperately needing a receiver there, first of all, I think about what I could have done differently, but then I will also take Jameson Williams. He gives you spike week upside. It's pretty difficult to see like him consistently delivering production as the third guy on the Lions. Jared Goff's deep threat, also not particularly exciting archetype, but like Jared Goff has the ability to throw deep. He just doesn't very often. If Jameson Williams is really bringing it this year, he's getting behind the defense. This is a defense that they run the ball a lot and they pepper the short area of the field with targets. So like this will be a defense. Defenses are going to be asked to kind of come up. They're going to be fighting an urge to come up and stop the Lions from doing what they do best, which is all short stuff. And so Jameson Williams is going to be the guy tasked with, taking the top off, but potentially doing that, like getting behind the defense and getting open for long touchdown throws and stuff. So it doesn't strike me as really all that hard to believe that he does have a couple big games this year. And what weeks do they fall in and what did you pay for him? And I don't know if you're like get him in the 9th round, you probably get by. Like almost think about him like Rashod Rice, like you're getting that's like suspended guy, but you're hoping that
no, but I won't. I'm totally unwilling to do that. Like Rashod Rice scored more fantasy points in like his first 5 career games than Jameson Williams has.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, he's 2 rounds earlier, even with the suspension, and Jameson Williams were like he'll basically be the equivalent of suspended. He'll be so unproductive for half of these games, but maybe the other half are fun.
And also like I feel like for guys like Jameson Williams, applying context is like actually bad because it just is excuses. It's just all that it is. It's just cope. It's just dude, he was suspended. Dude, he was coming back from a knee injury. You think they traded up and took him in the first round for no reason? I'm like, yeah, teams do that all the time. I just mentioned Kevin White. Like what, like there was no reason for Kevin White to become a first. And like also, oh my God, he was coming off the torn ACL. Then like, I don't know. I hope you guys are not drafting any Jonathan Brooks then. If all we're doing is coping for Jameson Williams, I hope your portfolio is zero Jonathan Brooks. Like, come on, dude.
I know we can't have it both. Like Breece Hall came back from an ACL last year and was a league winner. And I don't know. It's like, it's just guys can come back from the ACL now and be really good. And if they come back and are bad, like I'm a little bit skeptical to like completely throw out that data now just because of how many guys have come back and been good. And it could be 2 things, right? It could be that this knee injury was really bad for Jameson and he's just not going to be the same player he was in college. Like that happens to guys.
That probably is what it was. It probably was just like bad luck for him.
Yeah. Like these injuries are not all the same. So I don't know. I do want to say, Nez had this comment. The Lions are definitely telling us to have confidence in him. Though.
That's true.
I totally agree with that. Like I'm not dismissing the coach speak stuff. And look at their offseason. Like they let Josh Reynolds walk, who kind of was their alternative to Jameson Williams last year. They didn't bring in anyone. I think it's, Khalif Raymond and DPJ behind JMO. So I do believe they're going to give him a bigger role this year. But again, like imagine you're
the Chiefs had a lot of faith in Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney too.
Yeah.
They didn't bring anyone in, and then
he was straight up undraftable. Yeah. He was undraftable before these comments. I don't understand why anyone was interested, unless you just knew the Lions were going to feel this way somehow. But I just didn't understand. I truly did not understand this ADP at all. The Lions' enthusiasm to me is like, okay, I will take him if he falls like, 8th, 9th. I'll mix him in sometimes because he does have the single week explosiveness, and the Lions are very clearly interested in him taking a leap this year, and he's going to get a chance to do that.
He can get you out of jail too, because you can take Goff. He correlates with my favorite 2nd round pick, Debo. I'm not saying he's like unclickable, but the dude stinks. And Sky Moore and Tony stunk too, and I took them. So,
just close your eyes and imagine
we're all gonna lose anyway.
Yeah, and then also at the end of the day, like it's fun, and taking guys like Jameson is fun, and Bateman not that fun. I mean, I will say this: I'm never taking Bateman if Lamar is not on that team. Not even for Stroud. My correlation.
I'd use him as a Stroud bring back.
No, I can't go there.
I'm actually going back to the Bateman well. I'm doing it.
No, okay. This is
the point, dude? It's so cheap.
You're trying to replace Devontae Parker in your heart, and I don't.
I have to say, Rashod Bateman going from exciting young rookie breakout to Sam's new Devontae Parker is really tough.
I really thought Bateman was going to be so good too, man.
Here's the thing on like the Bateman thing too, and I don't know how much it matters, but like the charting stuff on Bateman, you see it on Open Score, and then also if you look at Harmon's like reception perception stuff, Harmon is still tripling, quadrupling down on Bateman, saying he's good. He's saying Jameson Williams is not good. If you look at that data, it is pretty bad for JMO. So that's the other thing. Like if I forget who came up with this metaphor. Maybe it was Beimfor's like chasing waterfalls, a thing that he came up with this year. Yeah, like if I'm chasing waterfalls at pick 150 plus, I'm okay with it. Like at pick 87,
I would rather take Greg Dortch straight up over Rashod Bateman. Honestly,
it's hard to push back. Even they're probably going to have the same.
I've got no interest in round 14 Rashod Bateman unless I have Lamar Jackson on that team. None, zero. I will not click an uncorrelated Rashod Bateman.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I could take Luke McCaffrey instead, and to be honest, I'd rather.
Let's talk here. I wanted to close the show talking about a couple more fallers. We got TJ Hockenson, Keaton Mitchell, Nick Chubb on here. What do they all have in common? They have injuries that were just not being really priced in appropriately. Now I think it's like fair to argue if they are, but I did this research early in the offseason on pop candidates, and 3 of the top 4 guys here that are on this fallers list, TJ Hockenson, Keaton Mitchell, Nick Chubb, all flagged them. Again, I'm obviously not a doctor. I just purely did the surgery date to average recovery timeline math. All these guys had 3 of the 4 highest pop candidate risk in the league last year. So I think the fall on all these guys is appropriate. I mean, it was insane. Nick Chubb was going at pick 69 when these pre-draft tournaments opened. He's at like 120 now. TJ Hockenson was going at pick 98. Like they were egregiously mispriced for a while. I do think it's interesting now. Let's start with Hockenson. Like pick 133 is starting to get a little more interesting to me. I'm curious, Pat and Davis, with your guys' ranking, starting with you, Davis, have you been more interested in him at this cost?
I've got him ranked below this even, but the thing is it's very, everyone who's done one of these drafts has told themselves the TJ Hockenson lie, which is you miss out on all the elite tight ends. Oh, Bowers went. What do? I need an elite. So this is what I'm going to do. No one else will think of this. I'm a genius. I'm going to take TJ Hockenson slightly ahead of ADP, going to backdoor him with Noah Fant, and then I'm going to take one of the early season vets, Zach Ertz, Dawson Knox, with him. And by the time he's back, I'll have access to elite tight end production.
Yeah, it's a good
I've done that. I don't reach for it, though. I only let it fall to me. Because I think he's still going like 20 picks too high. Like legitimately. So he has to fall. Now he has fallen to me in some of these puppies and stuff. He's fallen, and I'll scoop him, get a little exposure. But I don't know. I think he's going to keep falling. He's going to miss a bunch of time.
When that dude gets when they put him on the pup, round 14.
Yeah. So I have here week 9. I have that as his optimistic return timeline. That would be 9 months. That's the typical timeline for a clean ACL. Now he also torn his MCL. That, I guess the MCL, according to the injury experts, is not that bad compared to like meniscus, PCL, etc. But it's obviously not good either. So again, optimistic return timeline is like week 9. Now some guys can come back in like 8 months. So extremely optimistic would be like week 5, 6. That's still pup list likely in my opinion. So yeah, I just don't see many avenues to him like skyrocketing in ADP unless he just breaks all these timelines and comes back way earlier than expected.
The other thing is that I feel like, we're not going to knock Jefferson because he went from Kirk Cousins to JJ McCarthy because he's Jefferson. Addison has fallen, I feel like, a little bit. Certainly lower than where he would have been if Cousins had re-signed. probably by a couple rounds. But like, how much of this is going to get baked into Hockenson? Because we're talking about the injury and when he's coming back, but we're talking about probably the third option on the JJ McCarthy Vikings.
Yeah,
it's not
point.
that high ceiling of a play.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Because I think the thing we feel the most confident in is that it just doesn't matter for Justin Jefferson, or at least I should speak for myself. I don't think it matters at all. I literally think he could get there with Zach Wilson. I think he's that good.
I can get there with Darnold. I don't think.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
I agree.
But there are going to be big knock-on effects. If McCarthy is not quite great, there are going to be big knock-on effects for Hockenson, Addison, and Aaron Jones, where those guys, the pie is going to be much smaller for those guys.
Yeah.
So,
and I think with Hockenson, I think it is like a sneaky piece of Jordan Addison's ADP that's maybe not fully baked in, is that Jordan Addison, I guess, and for Jefferson too, right? Like, I was trying to think today, who's the wide receiver 3 on the Vikings?
Brandon Powell.
So it's going to be with Brandon Powell out there, and I guess Josh Oliver as the tight end. It's going to be insane.
Hey, buddy, that is the 12th highest paid tight end in the NFL.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be insanely concentrated between Addison and Jefferson for 10, 11, 12 weeks. Like, what are their, combined target shares going to be? 55%?
Who is the funniest possible fourth wide receiver for the Vikings? Funniest possible name. First round pick. Flamed out.
Laquan Treadwell.
So Rager is a Patriot, but this guy is related. Treadwell is also on the roster, but not the fourth wide receiver. Or Treadwell,
Kevin White.
They cut him. No.
Kevin White is the funniest possible.
Kevin White is the funny. Kevin White was in the NFL as recent as 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The answer is in Keel Harry is on this roster.
Oh wow,
pretty funny. That's funnier than Rager for sure.
It's funnier than Rager. It's much funny. Although Rager coming back to the Vikings in this like punt return role that he's in, I mean that would be good content. That would be extremely good content. Yeah.
Jalen Rager, not the first time, would be pretty funny.
We'll talk quickly here on Keaton Mitchell. He's also down. I know we talked about this Ravens backfield a little bit on 2 weeks ago show.
Keaton Mitchell undraftable.
Yeah, man. He seems, I don't know, because he was so damn good when he was on the field last year, but so I have him here as just a clean ACL. There's been some like mixed reporting on that. Like the people who watch the video and say they can see stuff from that say that it was like a really nasty knee injury, even though nothing's been reported outside of the ACL. So I don't know. In spirit of avoiding dead roster spots, I've been kind of avoiding him. So yeah, I think I'm with you, Davis.
Rasheen Ali. Learn the name.
I think Mitchell. Serious. I think Mitchell's like draftable on Texans and Ravens stuff.
Oh,
yeah, sure.
And I think in a weird way, I think the Texans stuff is almost more interesting because you're not betting on the Ravens. You're just betting on the Texans to score points and the Ravens to, get pulled into the game. So you just need Keaton Mitchell to be active and interesting in the final week, if your bet is on the Texans. So that's where I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it a ton. But I do think he's draftable. I think he's draftable just kind of with how much he flashed last year and it's a pure end of the season, like one spike week type of bet, which if you get one massive spike week or one, not even massive, but just like very usable 23 points out of Keaton Mitchell, you're pretty psyched.
Keaton stuff is a bummer.
You're going to be the opposite of psyched when Rasheen Ali is scoring a bazillion touchdowns a game when Derrick Henry retires midseason.
The problem for Rasheen Ali, I think, is Justice Hill.
No, I think this is your classic. Justice Hill is who he is, and Rasheen Ali is the maybe even game day inactive, but plays when Henry gets injured. Like he just comes in and runs the dang ball.
But that's like a parlay where you have to also then hope Mitchell doesn't make a strong recovery because he feels practice squatty to me Rasheen Ali. Like, I need information that he's not gonna is he not Tyler Beatty?
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean he probably is, but man has to believe in something.
Pop quiz on Keaton Mitchell. He had 47 attempts last year. Did he have more or less yards per carry than Devon Achane?
Sorry, who? Keaton Mitchell?
Keaton Mitchell. Did Keaton Mitchell on his 47 attempts last year have more
because he had like an 80-yard touchdown?
Yeah, he had more.
He had more? What did he?
He had more. He had 8.4 yards per carry on nearly 50 carries, 60% breakaway rate. Literally,
awesome.
He was awesome. Great.
He was actually so insanely good. It's honestly such a bummer because I do think this injury is just gonna tank him for this year. I'm excited to see him.
I bet they don't. Sure. I bet if he doesn't hurt his knee, I bet they don't do the Henry thing. Seriously, like he was that good.
Man.
Yeah, such.
I don't know. I think you're playing for 1 week. Like I guess I don't know. Maybe he isn't draftable, and we should just wait until we have more information. But what the injury stuff, if he starts the season on PUP, like he's going to make. I don't know. It's not like he's going to get cut or something. Is what I'm trying to say. Like he's going to be on he's going to be in the mix, and if he comes back, they're going to sort of get to see what they have. I don't know.
Last round pick, honestly, like you're fishing in dead roster spot territory already at pick 206. Like I don't.
And I guess
and correlated only.
Yeah.
To be fair, generally you're trying to do one of two things with your 18th round pick. You're either granting big dead roster spot equity for, this year's Kyren Williams, or you're just trying to patch a hole. You're like, I'm going to take Dawson Knox because I might need 6.2 points in week 14.
I'm just imagining right now, something about Sam's look right now too. I'm just imagining him outside, like tinkering around in the garage, like just patching his hole with like a little Devontae Parker.
Mac Jones.
Jones is just building a stool. Mac Jones.
Did you guys see the clip of Mac Jones doing the gauntlet at Jaguars practice today? It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
No, please.
I can't wait for I'm sure Denny Carter's gonna have like a Mac Jones is better than Trevor Lawrence take. I'm excited for that one to come out pretty soon.
Yes, yeah, he's workshopping that. All right, let's do Nick Chubb. Did you know Nick Chubb is the best pure rusher in the NFL? It's a darn shame he's not healthy.
I'm taking Chubb now. I'm taking him.
I'm taking him now because you can get him in like the 12th, 13th round sometimes. But
why not? Why not at that point? I guess
I still prefer like Blake Corum, Charbonnet. I don't know. Maybe this is totally like really bad takes, but he's a 28, 29-year-old guy with the combination ACL, MCL, PCL, LCL. Like,
dude, it's bad. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad take to prefer Corum, Charbonnet, those guys over him. I think if he ends up settling at
Charbonnet just behind, but I think I might flip him.
Yeah, if he ends up settling in the 130s, like he would be like a 5% mix-in guy for me. I think maybe 3 or 4%. Because I don't know, like I just need these guys coming off these devastating knee injuries to prove me wrong. I mean, it's such a big difference, like the rookie running back who tears his ACL and it's a clean tear versus like the 29-year-old veteran ripping apart.
He's already injured this knee before. He's already injured this knee before.
Yeah.
So it's like when you recover, like, look, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you know ball, your knee, it's gonna get progressively weaker. Like it's not gonna recover the same.
Yeah, I think if you're getting Chubb at a price where you're basically betting on contingent upside to unlock late season performance,
it's fine,
which may or may not happen, then okay, yeah. You're getting him near Charbonnet or whatever, Corum. The problem that I see, even compared to those guys, is that like, okay, with Chubb, it's not contingent. He doesn't need contingency. He needs everything to actually kind of go best case scenario. And then he kind of recovers from the knee injury and takes the rightful place as the starter again at the end of the season. But like, what are you even getting then? When I had Matthew Betts on the pod, he was like, he did not seem particularly bullish about what Chubb will be even down the stretch coming off this injury at his age. I think age is a pretty big part of this. Like Chubb kind of proved that, in the first recovery that he had this devastating knee injury, but you can kind of come back from that as a super young player. When we see this stuff in older players, it doesn't tend to go nearly as well. So I don't know. I definitely, probably in like the 130s is really where Chubb starts to be interesting to me. He's fallen a lot. I think in the one teams, there's a fair amount of opportunity costs. Like you're getting, what Javonte Williams might still be on the board or has just gone off. You're getting him 2 years off a devastating knee injury. I'll take that for sure. Give me the
Chase
2v2.
Chase Brown or Nick Chubb.
Yeah, give me Chase Brown, man.
Yeah, give me Chase Brown.
Yeah, I understand that like Nick Chubb could come back and be good, and if that happens, he'll be better than Chase Brown. But like, this late in a guy's career, this injury is pretty concerning. So I think you have to be really only paying for the second half of the season. And with running back prices being what they are, that doesn't really happen until I would say after at least the 120s. Like you can get Zeke at 129. Are you paying for half a season with Zeke? Maybe.
Yeah, you probably are. You probably are getting 8 games.
Maybe, but you might get a whole one. I know I'm not getting a whole season. The comp that obviously terrifies you is Adrian Peterson coming back from the ACL, where it's like he totally owned your soul. That's true.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this just feels like what do you want me to do? What do you want me? You want me to take a guy I didn't like anyways ever for fantasy football because he got hurt? Like he's coming into the season knowing I'm going to take 6 zeros from him at least. I don't know.
So one thing that's interesting here is we can get into a little bit of what the Browns' expectations are based on the contract stuff and what happened. He could have been cut, and the Browns would have only had $4 million in dead cap this season, meaning they would have paid a $4 million cap hit in 2024. Chubb would have been off their roster. What they decided to do was basically reduce his cap hit from 15 to 6 this season. So they tacked on 2 more million in guarantees and said, hey, Chubb, you're not getting paid $15 million, but we're willing to pay you an extra $2 million to be on the team this year. So essentially you can think of the Browns giving him kind of like a 1-year, $2 million commitment this season instead of cutting him. That's not a ton of commitment for a running back, but at the same time, it's not absolutely nothing. Like it does signal they have an expectation he's going to play this season, right?
Yeah.
Like you would have just cut him instead of paying him the extra $2 million. So that's where I think.
I mean, they clearly like him, right? I mean, no one.
It's also a fan. Yeah, it's a fan base. It's a fan base.
I think it's a locker room.
Bit.
I think the guy's a team leader. When he got paid, remember when there was a whole thing of, are they going to pay this guy? And it's like, dude, you have to pay this guy. Like he's like the heartbeat of the locker room. Like this guy,
he's like the only guy with a positive Q score on the entire roster.
Yeah, like the Browns do not need to cut Nick Chubb. Like that is just bad for business after everything he's done for them. So I think very, very smart for them to find a way to bring him back.
Exactly. But yeah, point being there is like, I think you can say they have some expectation he's going to play this season. Just think it's far more likely it's going to be like an 8 to 10 carries per game as they're bringing him back. Like, I don't think we're getting 20 carries a game, Nick Chubb, off this injury. So, yeah.
I'd probably ever, right? Like, what are we ever getting that?
Yeah.
Are we getting it in week 17? That's the part that concerns me. Like, what am I even paying for at the end of the season? Is it like 12 carries?
Yeah. I think Charbonnet is the line for me, right? Or maybe even Rico Dowdle is
I like Rico more.
Yeah. Like, once it's past there and we're getting to guys that we have no idea, like their depth chart position or if they're good at all, then I'll start getting back in a Chubb, like around pick 135, 140. But yeah, I don't know. ADP is flat in this range. Like it's not, I no longer think if this is some like egregious pick that it clearly was at pick 70. I just think it's like, meh, like, I don't know.
I think, it went from terrible pick, like would never do it to that's fair.
That's fair.
That's where I am at now too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fair.
All right. End of the show here, guys. I think we've kind of gone away from this for a couple weeks, but let's get back to our favorite closing line values.
Oh damn! We didn't do it. We didn't do it when we could have been taking or someone could have taken Rashod Bateman.
Yeah, I know that would have been a huge win.
I know, a big miss for us on the CLV.
Yeah, I am scrolling right now. I imagine you guys are as well.
No, I got one. I got one.
Jump in. Okay, jump in.
You go first, Pat.
Well, I'm worried I might steal your guy. So
I don't think so. Mine is a high pick.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead. Braylon Allen.
God damn. Okay. I just wanted to save him for future times, but yeah, the drum beat has been inevitable. The thing that we knew was going to happen is happening.
There's two drum beats here. One, Braylon Allen starting to get some hype. Two, Izzy Abanikanda is loathed by the Jets coaching staff. That drum beat has happened for the last 2 years.
It's deafening.
It is deafening. It is deafening. There's just no chance that it's Izzy. It's not Izzy. We know that. It's not 0.0. So who is it? Well, now it's like it looked crowded before. Is it Isaiah Davis? Is it Izzy? Is it Braylon Allen? What's the point of even guessing? We're not guessing anymore. The answer is Braylon Allen. That's who the RB2 is for the Jets. I already feel pretty confident. The draft capital difference should be helpful with him and Isaiah Davis. I know they signed like Tariq Cohen. To me, that's like it's definitely not Izzy underlined rather than anything to worry about with that.
Yeah, it's like extra. It's not Izzy because there was a chance that Izzy could be like the kick returner. They could use his athleticism. No, it's like Izzy. Learn CFL, buddy.
Yeah. So I think you're going to get Braylon Allen's the clear RB2. You're going to get that drum beat. You're going to get, oh yeah, Braylon Allen was massive. Don't you know what he did as a freshman at Wisconsin? You're going to get that back.
Don't you know?
And then you're going to get Nathaniel Hackett's always run committees. This guy always has a committee. So we're going to get that whole narrative.
Bro,
so I think Braylon Allen.
They were consciously giving Dalvin Cook the ball over Breece on purpose. They gave Dalvin Cook $7 million last year.
Last year.
Like you're telling me there's no chance. You're telling me there's no chance this clown shoes organization isn't going to give Braylon Allen goal line carries. You're telling me there's no way? I don't believe it.
That's what I'm telling. So he's rocketing up. By the time we get into August, we're talking about Braylon Allen and Marshawn
RB
Lloyd.
46.
They're holding hands. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Mine is kind of related to that in terms of reading the tea leaves for camp stuff, but it is Isaiah Pacheco. I think the Isaiah Pacheco drumbeat is going to get insane for two reasons. The first being people are going to realize they're just going to have done the mental math of Carlos Hyde's not walking through that door. Melvin Gordon's not walking through that. It's like this backfield is Isaiah Pacheco, a guy you hate, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and nobody. I mean, Deneric Prince, Keontae Ingram, maybe James Williams is going to come back onto the roster out of the ether, and the Chiefs drumbeat is also going to get louder as people realize they are going to plan on scoring a bunch of points. Right now, the market is kind of Gretch has mentioned this, Sean has mentioned this. The market is still kind of treating them like the 21 and a half points per game Chiefs, and they're going to realize pretty quickly that's not happening this year. And I think the Pacheco will end up going into the third round and is going to flip Travis Etienne.
It's not that different. Obviously, the running back drafting landscape is way different, but it's not that different of a setup from when Damian Williams was a first-round fantasy pick, right? It's not that different. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but in terms of closing line value,
Damian Williams I took in the second round of my first ever main event.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever first round.
He was a second rounder. Yeah.
God.
But anyways, I'm gonna go with a weird one here. I thought about a lot of different options. I got a Galaxy Brain one. Samaje Perine. I think he has lots of outs because I still continue to believe
this is such a coward one because it's a lock to be true.
It's just right.
It's just right.
Just be right, you coward.
Yeah. Just be right.
Here's the thing, though. It is a bit of a coward pick, but I do think there's upside. Okay, here is outs to being like
I
a
don't
pick.
see why it's a coward pick. It's just a good pick.
Here's why. Yeah, okay. He has outs to be a pick in like the 120s on a few teams, right? Say the Texans, they're like, Dameon Pierce, you're garbage. Samaje Perine gets cut. Bring him in. Pay him $2 million. Where's Samaje Perine going as the clear RB2 on the Texans? I'd say 120s, 130s. He could go to the Cowboys, right? And I think, again,
if he goes back to the Bengals and sends
exactly
Brown to the netherworld.
The Bengals is the other one I was going to bring up.
We're so fucked if that happens.
I shouldn't even.
You're telling me Zach Taylor doesn't want to sign Samaje Perine?
I shouldn't
if he
even
gets
put
cut?
it into the ether because it will be so bad for me if that happens.
It's such an own too because it's like, gotta bet on talent, and then we take a big bag of this guy, and Samaje Perine shows up, and we're like, fuck!
Look, if Samaje Perine gets traded for a conditional 7th round pick to the Bengals, I might just take that as a sign to not play. Like it's like enough.
That's gonna be tough, man. That'll be tough.
Yeah,
let's not have that happen.
He's got some outs. It's disgusting, but it's gonna happen. All right, guys.
Are you drafting him now? Are you waiting?
No, he's been my emergency. Like I'd take Clyde Edwards-Helaire over him, but if CEH is gone and we're in like Tank Bigsby, like Will Shipley territory, that's when I'm clicking Perine at that point. Like he's my breaking case of emergency right now. Pick
The Chargers.
The Chargers. But I might move him to that range.
Because like honestly, if he doesn't get cut, then what? That just means that the Broncos want him in that same role last year where he caught like 50 passes, and what if Jaleel gets hurt or something, right? Like it's not that bad of a setup.
I guess that means Estime and the other guy Watson don't make the team.
Yeah, it probably means like Estime's knee scope.
Watson
surgery.
Definitely didn't make the team.
Yeah,
if Watson makes the team. Perine's done.
Well, if Watson makes the team, McLaughlin might be done.
Right.
Yeah. But Perine in the setup on the Broncos, like say Javonte gets hurt, man, Perine would. I mean, who else is going to take like the between the tackles carries there? I guess maybe Estime, but yeah, That's the
problem with the Broncos. There's always like 2 other guys it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even and it's like oh, you guys aren't taking Cortland Sutton as the wide receiver 1 for the Broncos, and it's like great, it's week 15 and Lil Jordan just led the team in targets. And you're like,
I'm still mad at Sam for not doing that thread. At Sam's Cortland Sutton is going behind 2 Titans receivers. It's just sitting there for all summer.
Yeah,
and you won't do it.
The thread for me would be Josh Reynolds, Crane. It's a misread of my brand. Come on. Josh Reynolds is locked into 3 wide receiver sets for Bo Nix. Outperformed Jameson Williams in 2023.
Do you guys remember Devery Henderson? Because boy, do I.
You're right. I misread that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's get out of here. Crane, Legendary Upside. I saw Sacrilegious who's in the chat here. I saw he had a cool new article on Legendary Upside. Anything else you want to mention going on there?
Yeah, that came out this morning. Some good stuff in there on diversification and specifically some really interesting thoughts on how to attack the sprint format. So if you're interested in that, really almost in a sense how not to attack the sprint format. As we discussed, you want to be more diversified in that format than others. And he gave some really good examples in that piece. So check that out. And I'm going to have an article on running backs out later this week. So look for that. legendaryupside.com/perks. You can see how to get $50 Underdog credit with a yearly subscription. Still have some of those available.
Awesome. Davis, I see you're back to writing on automatic absolutes.
Yeah, I officially have done more automatic absolutes than Cavish, so that feels like a win. Sports Grid Fantasy Football Podcast, Take Cast, all that stuff.
Sounds good. All right, guys. We'll be back next week. Peace.